All right, ladies and gentlemen, back to the Scarlet Letter. On the last chapter, chapter 4, we learn that Pearl is growing up. She's a bit of a wild child, and she doesn't have friends in the community. They all are mean to her, and she's even meaner to them. So, chapter 5, at the governor's house. One day, Hester Prynne went to the house of Governor Bellingham. She was bringing him a pair of fine gloves that she had embroidered. These elegant gloves were to be worn for special occasions. There was another and more important reason for Hester's visit, however. Hester had heard that the governors and other ones thought that her child should be taken from her. They thought that she was not a good mother for Pearl. The little girl, who was already 3 years old, would be better off being raised by other people. On this day, Hester had dressed Pearl in a red velvet dress, decorated with gold thread. Pearl's dress looked like the scarlet letter on Hester's dress. As Hester and Pearl made their way down the street towards the governor's house, they passed a group of children. "Look!" cried a boy. "There is the woman of the scarlet letter, and there is the likeness of the scarlet letter running by her side. Let's throw mud at them." When Pearl heard this, she screamed and shouted at the children. She stamped her foot and shook her fist. Frightened by the little girl rushing at them, the Puritan children ran away. At that, Pearl smiled sweetly at her mother. The two reached the governor's house without further adventure. One of the governor's servants met them at the front door. "Good day. Is the governor home?" asked Hester. "Yes, he is, but he has visitors, some ministers and a doctor. You may not see him now," said the servant. "Nevertheless, I will enter," said Hester. She stepped inside, Pearl following right behind her. Because of Hester's proud manner, the servant thought she must be a person of some importance, so he didn't try to stop her. Inside the hall, they came across the governor's suit of armor. The polished steel shone like a mirror. Pearl was pleased with the armor. She spent some time looking at it. "Mother!" cried Pearl. "I see you here. Look!" Hester looked. She saw that because the reflection was curved, the scarlet letter looked huge. In fact, Hester appeared to be hidden behind it. "Come along, Pearl," she said, drawing her away. "Come and look at this garden outside the window." Pearl, seeing rose bushes, began to beg for a red rose. "Hush, child, hush," said her mother. "Do not cry, little Pearl. I hear voices in the garden. The governor is coming, and some gentlemen along with him." Turning to look, Pearl saw some men approaching and became silent. The governor was walking with Reverend Wilson. Behind them came Reverend Dimmesdale and Dr. Chillingworth. "Well, well, what have we here?" said the governor when he saw Pearl. "Indeed," said Reverend Wilson. "What little bird of scarlet may this be? Are you a Christian child?" "I am my mother's child," answered the little girl in red, "and my name is Pearl." "But where is your mother?" asked the old minister. "Ah, I see," he added. Turning to the governor, he whispered, "This is the child about whom we were just speaking, and her unhappy mother, Hester Prynne." "We might have guessed that her mother must be the Scarlet Woman," said the governor. "Let us look into this matter." Governor Bellingham stepped into the hall, followed by his 3 guests. "Hester Prynne," said the governor, "there has been much talk about the child. Wouldn't it be better for her if she were taken away from you? She should be dressed properly, and she needs to be taught manners and the truths of heaven and earth. What can a poor woman like you do for the child?" "I can teach my little Pearl what I have learned from this," said Hester, pointing to the scarlet letter. "Woman, it is your badge of shame. It is because of that letter we would put the child into other hands," said the governor. "But the letter teaches me lessons each day," Hester added. "From these lessons my child may become wiser and better." "We shall see," said the governor. "Good Master Wilson, please see if this child has learned what a good Christian of her age should know." Mr. Wilson sat down in a chair next to the little girl. "Pearl," he said, Can you tell me, my child, who made you?" Pearl knew who made her. Her mother had taught her all about the Father in heaven, but this is not what she told Mr. Wilson. Instead, the little girl said that she had been picked by her mother from a rose bush of wild roses. Old Roger Chillingworth smiled and turned to whisper something in Reverend Dimmesdale's ear. Hester looked at the doctor. He looked even more ugly than she remembered him to be. "This is awful!" cried the governor in shock. "Here is a 3-year-old child, and she cannot tell me who made her? Gentlemen, we need ask no more questions." Hester grabbed Pearl and drew her into her arms. "God gave me this child. She is my happiness, and she is my torture. Pearl keeps me here in life. Pearl punishes me too. You shall not take her. I will die first." "Poor woman," said Mr. Wilson. "The child shall be well cared for, far better than you can do." "It was God who gave the child unto my keeping," repeated Hester. Her voice had risen almost to a scream. "I will not give her up." Then she turned to Mr. Dimmesdale for the first time. "Speak for me," she cried. "You were my pastor. You know me better than these men can. You know what is in my heart. I will not lose the child. Help me." Dimmesdale stepped forward. The pale young man held his hand over his heart. Hester noticed that he always did this when he was nervous, and Dimmesdale looked as though his health was failing. He had lost weight. She saw a look of pain and sadness in his large dark eyes. "There is truth in what he said," began the minister. His sweet yet powerful voice shook as he spoke. "God gave Hester the child as a blessing, the one blessing in her life. Also, as she has told us, God has meant to punish her. She has shown this in the dress of the poor child. It is to remind us of what the red letter stands for." "Well said," cried Mr. Wilson. "I was afraid the woman had no better thought than to make a clown of the child." "Oh, not so," cried Dimmesdale. "Hester knows what the child was meant by God to do. It is to keep her from falling into sin again. For her sake, no less than for the child's, let us leave them as God has placed them." "Ah, you speak with strong feelings, my friend," said the old doctor, smiling at Dimmesdale. "And there is much truth in what he says," added Mr. Wilson. "What do you say, Master Belling? Has he not pleaded well for the poor woman?" "Indeed he has," said the governor. "We will leave the matter as it stands, so long as there is no further scandal." Pearl ran up to Reverend Dimmesdale. She took his hand in both of hers and put her cheek against it. Dimmesdale put his hand on the girl's head and kissed her brow. Then Pearl ran away laughing and dancing down the long hall. "A strange child," said the old doctor. "It is easy to see her mother in her. Suppose we will watch her closely. Do you think it might then be possible to guess who the father is?" "No, it would be sinful," said Mr. Wilson. "Surely it is better to pray on it, and leave the mystery as we find it. Let every good Christian man show a father's kindness towards the poor child." Hester and Pearl left the house. As they were going down the stairs, a voice above them said, "Sst, sst, sst." They looked up. In an open window there was the face of Mr. Hibbins, the governor's sister. She was known as a mean old woman. Several years later, Mistress Hibbins would be put to death as a witch. In those days, of course, people believed in witches. Mistress Hibbins said, "Will you go with us tonight? There will be merry company in the forest. I promised the devil that Hester Prynne would be there." "Please make my excuse to him," Hester answered with a smile. "I must stay home and care for my little Pearl. Had they taken her away from me, I would have gladly gone with you, and I would have signed my name in the devil's book. We shall see you there soon enough," said the witch lady as she drew back her head. All right, go ahead and answer the questions for Chapter 5. If you have any questions, feel free to email me.